Right now, we're on our industry keynote, which is Reassessing Business Transformation in the Digital Era. We're joined by Chulanga Parera, CIO, Daimler Commercial Vehicles. Well, Chulanga has played a key role in setting up the big data analytics and innovation teams for Daimler Trucks Asia, a team he went on to head post its inception from the scratch. He's one of the youngest executives there globally to serve as the Chief Information Officer. Thank you so much, Chulanga, for joining us today live at the Big CIO Show. With this, I'd now like to welcome you on the stage and screen. Thank you for being a part of the Big CIO Show.
Thanks for having me, Bhavana. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure. So, Chulanga, the stage is all yours. Over to you.
Great. Thanks a lot, Bhavana. Let me see if I can get my screen up and running so that we can get started. Great. So first of all, good afternoon to everyone. And I'd like to just quickly get started. We have roughly about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, through which I will briefly touch upon a few aspects which I think are essentials for reassessing business transformation in the digital era. So before we get started, I think, as we all are aware, the country is going through an unprecedented time, not just our country, the world as well. And I wanted to, before getting started, share my heartfelt solidarity and prayers out to you and your loved ones if you were directly or indirectly impacted. All the strength out, and I think if we stand strong and united, we can get through this. So prayers as well as solidarity out to each and every one of you who may or may not have been impacted. And let's keep praying that this is the last we see of this. So moving on. As I said, my name is Chulanga Parera. I'm the CIO for Daimler India Commercial Vehicles. And Daimler is the world's largest commercial vehicle manufacturer. Our parent organization is based out of Germany, and we produce brands such as Mercedes-Benz, Freightliner, Fuso, Western Star, Thomas Built Buses, etc., with 4,000 plus people. So COVID-19, I think we are all aware of it. The world has had three shocks which came together: health, economics, and geopolitical. And these three shocks that came together in the early parts of last year left the entire world, the industries and economies, in a state of paralysis. And what I mean by a state of paralysis is everyone talks about, or have been talking about, the VUCA world. We talk about the volatility, the uncertainties, and the complexities and the ambiguity with which we have to navigate through our businesses, with which we have to survive in this ever-changing world. The term VUCA has now sort of been changed, or has been sort of rearranged to a term called BANI. This is a term coined by American anthropologist Yames Casisio, and BANI means brittle, anxious, non-linear, and incomprehensible. So we are moving away from a VUCA world to a more of a BANI world, which means that in this brittle, anxious, and non-linear or incomprehensible world that we live in, we have to continuously change. It does not matter which industry, how large an organization you're a part of, or at what maturity you're in. If you do not understand the state at which the world and the industry is moving, and how do you reassess your end goals or your strategy, you will be in a state of paralysis from which recovering becomes very, very difficult. It's a matter of survival of the fittest. And today, what we're going to talk about in the next 10, 15 minutes is about my take on how you can navigate through that. And for that, there's the long-term and the short-term gains. And this is a dilemma we face today, irrespective of the industry or the size of your organization. And also the big buzzword, right? Everybody talks about digital transformation, the digital era that we live in, and how that plays, or how does that come into play when we talk about business transformation. So these are two dilemmas which I will touch upon on a very high level and draw some examples out of the automotive sector. So when we talk about long-term versus short-term gains, I truly believe that you need to lead with a long view, and you should not, at any given point in time, compromise long-term for short-term gains. Last year, a lot of the experts talked about, the passing storm. They talked about V-shape, U-shape recoveries, muted recoveries, all sorts of recoveries. However, none of this will come into play purely because the unknowns are greater. We did not expect the second wave to hit us so hard. And we also do not know how large or what sort of a magnitude with which a third or a fourth wave might hit us. And we are now talking about COVID, but in the future, there could be a lot of unknowns in terms of crises which we will have to face. Does that mean that we should again fall into a state of paralysis or change our long-term and then navigate our businesses or reassess our business just for short-term gains? I genuinely don't think so, right? The road to recovery could be many, but keep your long-term gains in mind and have your organizations in such a way where you can overcome these crises irrespective of the magnitude so that you achieve that long-term goal or strategy. And that's what is very important, because any of these recovery models could come into play. If you have the right long-term goals and the strategy, I think you can navigate through it. Yeah. So how do you do this? I mean, it's easier said than done. I can sit here for 15, 20 minutes and talk about strategy on a couple of slides and give a big yarn about it, but it's easier said than done. And I think all of us at some point or the other would have taken a realistic approach, struggled with it. And I did the same. And we struggled as an organization. I struggled in my role. And I saw a lot of my counterparts also struggling drastically and getting out of that struggle somewhat in a very successful manner. We felt what is it that worked for us is something that probably could be applied to other organizations. So one thing that worked is we started at the finish line, which means we drew out our big picture and worked backwards. I spoke about the long-term view or the long-term gains. We always knew where we wanted to go. The automotive industry is changing very, very fast. We have a social responsibility. We have to take care of our customers, the demands of those customers. We have to be digital. And we are moving more from a product-based to a more service-based organization. Call it electrification, autonomous, whatever it may be, the automotive sector is heavily scrutinized. And therefore, we wanted to make sure that irrespective, we start at the finish line, which is knowing our long-term goals and working backwards. And how do I explain this? I'm sure most of you have at some given point in time used maps. It could be Google or any other form of maps. And we put our destination if it's an unknown area that we want to navigate to. And corporate strategies or business transformation is the same. Sometimes it's an unknown purely because we just don't know what the end result might be. So when it's an unknown, when we are going down that path, sometimes you may or may not, but there is a high likelihood that you might take a wrong turn. What do maps tell you? Maps never says it's the end of the world. You will never get to your destination. The moment you take a wrong turn, the map immediately says rerouting and then guides you towards your path. So when it comes to your businesses, again, in any industry or whatever size the organization is, you will face hurdles in terms of achieving your end result. The moment you do that, be calm and understand that it's just about rerouting. All you have to do is build an organization that's robust, agile, and resilient. Because if your organization is robust, agile, and resilient, whatever the recovery models or whatever the hurdles may come across, you will be able to navigate through that. And again, this is easier said than done, and it can't be done by one person or your board. You have to make sure the entire workforce understands this and you build your operating models around it, right? Make sure that they understand that these hurdles can be overcome. Sometimes it can't be overcome within yourself. Maybe you need to partner with somebody. Maybe you need to look at the entire industry, but it's not the end of it, and you can definitely overcome that. So moving on, when we talk about digital transformation, I think if you sit through a lot of seminars or board meetings, everybody wants cutting edge technologies or evolving technologies and the buzzwords. But before doing digital transformation, I truly believe, having gone through this journey in the past 2 years, we should ask some fundamental questions. You need to learn how to crawl before you run, right? So digital transformation cannot just happen on its own. Digital transformation or digitalization is an enabler. And what does it enable? It enables business transformation. So if you are doing digital for the sake of doing digital, it's an absolute recipe for disaster. You should focus on business transformation bring the technology as well as digital initiatives that will enable your business to transform, right? And to start off, just start, take a step back, take a pause, and ask these questions, these very simple questions. Am I going digital for the sake of it? And does this problem require digital solution, right? Sometimes, depending on the maturity of your organization or the problem that you have, maybe you don't need a digital solution. Maybe a digital solution comes in the third or the fourth wave, right? Maybe the first step is to optimize your processes, or maybe even re-engineer your entire process and then bring a digital solution, right? And don't do digital for the sake of it. Everyone might say, go ahead and use blockchain. I believe in the technology, but does that mean that that is the right technology? And should I just adopt it because it's an evolving or cutting edge technology? Probably not. See if it makes business sense and then adopt the technology or go digital. And then does my digital solution make business sense, right? You can look at it from an ROI perspective, but also there's only a certain amount of digital solutions that will make business sense depending on the industry or the customer you are catering to. And does my digital solution strongly complement my business? I have seen a lot of organizations in the past implement digital, but they don't have a digital culture. They have not upskilled and reskilled their employees. And all you do is you roll out digital solutions, which are great, but adoption is almost zero sometimes. You are sitting then with a lot of investments, huge run costs, and a situation where you're not able to sort of get the organization to buy in on this, right? And then also start thinking about what are the tangible and intangible benefits. Some digital solutions or transformation initiatives will not have tangible benefits. There might not be a tangible ROI. Maybe there are efficiencies that you might gain, but weigh out these options, have a clear understanding, and then ask the final question, does my organization or firm have the right infrastructure, culture, and the capabilities? Infrastructure means if you are building on a digital transformation journey or a roadmap, you need to have prerequisites. Don't just embark on the journey, because then you will go down this journey without having the right equipment, and you will be building houses on top of a foundation which is weak. And we all know what happens then, the entire thing will collapse. So sometimes it's about doing the things right and not just jumping on the bandwagons of digital transformation and the buzzwords. Make sure you have a culture where people accept and understand, and they are also able to embrace and also bring out ideas to digitally transform the businesses they are in, and then build capabilities. It's always evolving, right? And if you do this right, then maybe what George Westerman from MIT Sloan said will come to light, because he said when digital transformation is done right, it's like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, which is a wonderful thing. There is transformation. But when done wrong, all you have is a really fast caterpillar, which means you've not transformed. So I really resonate with this. And I think this is something I really take with me, because when you are embarking on this journey, make sure it is done right so that you can see the butterfly of your transformation. Otherwise, all you have is a really fast caterpillar. And most important is understand your digital maturity. We all run different races depending on the industry we are in. And we all have different digital maturities. And sometimes this is the most difficult thing. Just like we all, when someone asks us what are our individual weaknesses, our ego comes into play, and we are never able to accurately, sort of answer that question. There are only a few people. So even if you look at digital transformation in today's day and age, there'll be a handful of organizations that's done it right and have become successful, but there'll be a lot of use cases or case studies of digital transformation done wrong, purely because they didn't understand the digital maturity. What is digitalization, and then the utopic thing that we all want to achieve, which is digital transformation, is the last stage. And you have to go through each of these stages before you look at digital transformation. So before you embark, understand your digital maturity, look inwards within the entire organization, reassess where you are. It's never too late to change that strategy, and then do things right. I keep reiterating this because the more I listen to myself, the more I listen to industry experts, the more I listen to people who've gone through this journey, I've realized that, doing basics is what's going to achieve success for us, and not vice versa. So speed is a strategy. you can beat any grandmaster in chess if you can move twice as often as they can, given, of course, you know how to play chess. So utilize on the fact that speed is important, because again, our competitors, irrespective of the industry you're in, they are not sleeping. Yeah? Everybody is evolving, and so is technology. So be fast and make sure that you use speed as a strategy. 5 other pillars, which before I wrap up, I wanted to touch upon is the funding model, right? This is actually an enabler. And if you look at, for example, Daimler India Commercial Vehicles, even during the pandemic, we doubled our investments in terms of digital transformation and digitalization. Why? Because just like all of you, we believe in it. But we believe in it purely because we think that it's going to give us a cutting edge, 1. And 2, in order for us to transform our business, digitalization is an enabler. And funding model has to be done based on not in terms of how much percentage of your revenue do you invest, but in terms of how much can you recover out of it, and where do you need to put this money, right? Be it CapEx, be it OpEx, be it on people, make sure your funding model is right. Maybe a self-funding model, right? Work like a VC. And there are a lot of other models which you can look at, which might suit your needs, but look at that along with the ROI, which is the last bubble that you see on your screen. And an ROI can be 12 months, 18 months. It really depends on the technology or the use case, but keep that ROI in mind, and also keep in mind, as I said earlier, there could be intangible benefits. Then the middle portion I'll touch upon a little bit. 1 is on the 3 Ps, people, products, and processes. This is like a weighing scale, right? Or a scale. If the equilibrium is tilted, if you focus too much on your product and digitalizing your product, and you don't focus on your processes or your people, it'll be lopsided, and again, another recipe for disaster. So you have to make sure you tackle each of these 3 Ps equally. Upskill and reskill your people, build that digital culture, make sure your products embrace digitalization, and then your processes are continuously improved and made digital. Of course, technology is very important. Have a problem-first approach. There's enough technology. Don't run behind technology, because technology will evolve, and I don't think any of us are capable of keeping up with technology at the speed at which it's evolving. Yeah. So there's enough technology out there. Understand what is the problem. Look at what is the best technology that can fix that problem. Choose the right technology, choose the right partner, and then implement it. But we live in a world where security has become more and more prominent. If you saw the other panelists or the eminent speakers, they spoke about this. Data is everywhere. We're working remotely now, and security breaches are costing millions and millions of dollars. So understand, how do you need to navigate? Have your risk assessments done, and make sure that you secure and have the right security and infrastructure models well in place, well in advance, because investing there now, prevention is better than cure, is the cliche saying. So security is a fundamental aspect. Don't ignore that. If you are in manufacturing, OT is important. Having the right teams are important, but make sure that this has become a fundamental in your strategy. So as I wrap up, what is required for successful transformation? Just to wrap things up and summarize, when strategy leads, success follows, right? Recognition of business and social responsibility is important, because look at the way the world is evolving. You look at the newer generation, the customers are becoming more and more demanding, but also we have a responsibility towards making the world a better place. So recognize the business social responsibility that each of your organizations bring. Comprehensive skill management, that is, I touched upon that, upskilling, reskilling, and ensuring that you invest in your people, because people are very, very important. You have the right people, you will have the right products, and you will have success. And then incremental versus disruption. Understand the difference and make sure you do both. Some things will need to be incremental, others are disruptors. Adopt them wisely. And to wrap it off, the current situation calls for unconventional action. So let's not forget, it's not an end. I keep believing in this. It's a new beginning. So there will be a time after COVID. And I think if we are all taking the right path or going towards that right destination, we will be ready and we will overcome this. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. And I wish you all a pleasant evening.
Thank you so much, Chulanga, for joining us at the Big CIO Show. We absolutely valued your presence today. Thank you once again.
Thanks for having me, Bhavana.
Pleasure.